Infinity 2020 seems to be creating a huge buzz. And my students and friends have been raving about the conference since yesterday. And I'm sure tomorrow also would be a wonderful day. Well, coming to today's session, the first thing which comes to our imaginative mind when we hear the term artificial intelligence is to imagine either a world which depicts a technological utopia, bringing about the end to diseases, poverty, and resource disparity, or on the other hand, an extreme dystopian world where we see the rise of robots, the super intelligent machines, which will outthink the smartest humans and where humanity would be overthrown. Well, today's session will delve deeper into the uses of AI, the fear around AI, and the future of AI. So, to throw light on this widely debated topic, I have the pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker for this evening, Shalini Kapoor. Shalini is India's first women IBM Fellow for Artificial Intelligence and is also the Director and CTO for AI Applications India. As an IBM Fellow, Shalini drives research, strategy, and development to maximize the infusion of AI in our everyday lives. Well, personally, as an educator, I have been inspired by her vision to lead transformation to shape the lives of people. With 23 years of experience and 14 patents to her credit, Shalini has worked with global system integrators, ecosystem partners, and academia while incubating several next-gen solutions in the field of Internet of Things and AI. She is a torchbearer of good tech projects in India, focusing on STEM and AI for women and underprivileged while working with schools, universities, government, and industry leaders. So let's hear from Shalini about decoding the IoT and how we adapt and adopt AI into our lives. Without further ado, over to you, Shalini.
Thank you, Geeta. Thank you so much. It was a long, winding introduction, but thank you so much. And thanks, Vineet, for hosting this track and this session. It's really interesting to see the whole agenda for Infinity, and I'm sure the students are going to enjoy and love interacting with so many industry folks and startup folks, and so it's great. It's great from a career perspective. So friends, I'm going to talk about, and let me share my screen, which is my presentation. Are you able to see my presentation? Okay, good. And Geeta, you're able to hear me. Everybody's able to hear me, right? Okay, good. So let's start. So I'm going to talk about the business impact of AI. And of course, there are a lot of things known, unknown about AI. I'm going to talk about that. And then we can, get into some question answers. I'm sure students would like to know some more details. So how is the world of AI? How does it look like? Of course, there's a big promise of AI. You would be hearing a lot of stories as to how AI can solve healthcare problems, how AI can solve large problems which are in front of us. And of course, AI is being used so much. Even when you browse, even when you see Netflix and the recommendation, it's recommending you. When you're using Amazon and it's recommending the next product to you. You're using your phones, and there's so much of AI already being used. So there's big promises of AI. And there are a lot of people who are scared, or they think that there is AI is going to take over the humans, and you'll read all those articles which are like scaring you and saying that how things are going to change, and some people think the jobs will go, and others are talking about a lot about science fiction things. Some of it is real, some of it is played up, some of it is not, and we'll talk about those those fears. There's a lot of confusion of AI, and as students, I'm sure you must be thinking, where do I start from? How do I start? I mean, is artificial intelligence the same as machine learning? Is it same as data science? Is it same as computer science? What do I do if I'm not a computer science person? Then how can I learn AI? And not just that, even as teachers, there are so many teachers, they want to know an AI and they don't know where to start from. So there are a lot of confusion on where to start, how to learn, how to build your skills around AI. And then there is a large segment of people who have to just accept AI, because if they don't adopt AI, and if they are not not in the phase of adoption of AI, they're just going to be left out. And especially large businesses, enterprises, who are if they don't change their processes or start on new processes and they don't accept AI, they'll be left out. So we'll talk about these things. So let's just first see that how AI changes things. So if you see, IBM took a moonshot in 1960s when the first man landed on moon. It was IBM technology, servers and computers and laptops and everything which was the operation center, and which was managing the whole thing. So if ever you guys get to go to Orlando and see the NASA Space Center, there is a full set of exhibits that they have kept, that how IBM computers was the operation center managing everything, the rocket and everything which was the satellite which got launched. And then there is and now let me just jump off several years, several decades, and come now, where IBM just launched a marine exploration self-autonomous. It's an autonomous ship called Mayflower. It's a Mayflower project, which is tech-enabled. It has got 6 AI cameras, which are going to measure the ocean waves and how the ocean behaves, and how it is going to do marine exploration. It doesn't have a captain. The captain is AI. AI is the captain of that ship. So that's where we are today, right? And why is this possible? It is possible because there is huge amount of scaling of quantum which has come in place. See, if you see the history of AI, in the history of AI, there was a lot of time. I mean, algorithms and all happened pretty much in 60s. But why is it that there is a major boom on AI and everybody's talking about it now? It is because of certain factors. One is there's huge amount of data available. There was no data. AI is hungry for data. It's like, it didn't gobble up data and then only it can give an answer. That data was not available so many years back, and it is available now. Data in form of text and audios and videos and manuals and social media and everywhere else. There was no data earlier, right? Our systems were not computerized. Now applications are running. We are all literally sitting on huge billions of data. So the data happened, and also what happened along with that was that the hardware industry changed, and the Moore's law was thrown out, and everything miniaturization happened, and what could be done. In fact, a very interesting thing I heard, where Raj Reddy, who's kind of the father of AI in India, he used to talk about that in 1980 self-driving cars were possible. Self-driving cars from a software perspective were possible, but the only thing was, if a car is going ahead, there would be 6 trucks needed to carry the hardware for it. Right? I mean, that was the amount of size of hardware needed. But today, that hardware is within the car itself, right? Because a miniaturization has happened. The things, the semicon industry and the whole hardware is in such a manner that you can do large processing, huge amount of processing on computers, and quantum is a leap in that space. So I talked to you a bit about history, about present, which is Mayflower, and then future, where quantum is going to solve molecular and virus related issues for us, and so computer can solve those. But then what are the problems which will get solved? I'm sorry. what are the problems which will get solved in future, and what are the problems that you guys should work on, students should work on. And those problems are problems which, like what are mentioned in the UN sustainable development goals, which are related to climate, to health, to nutrition, to the way we do handle wastage. I mean, all those things have to come together. And the AI capabilities like computer vision, speech, audio processing, these technologies will have to advance themselves, develop themselves, and go to a different stage. Now, if you see, these problems cannot be solved only by technology of AI. It needs a very different kind of skill sets, which is social sciences, which is psychology, history, economics. So the whole AI domain can happen only if the technology part moves ahead, as well as the entire interdisciplinary skills related in the related areas are also brought together with AI. So as students, it is very important that you are not just looking at AI as a technology domain. AI is not just a technology domain; it is multidisciplinary, and I'm going to talk more in detail about this. I'm going to talk again and explain to you that why it is interdisciplinary. So IBM comes out with something called as 5 and 5, which is 5 predictions, which is going to change the world in 5 years, and where maximum investments and will happen. So the five predictions that IBM has is that there's going to be a huge amount of work in capturing and transforming carbon dioxide to mitigate climate change. There's a lot of work happening in this space. Producing fertilizers with less environmental impact, rethinking batteries. I mean, we all know that there is so much of electric move towards electrical mobility. So the batteries have whether in our cars, or whether in our scooters, or whether in our phones, or powering our homes, and all those, we have to really rethink that what is the technology which is going to reduce. Drug repurposing, because we all know we are in the pandemic area, and how important is to speed up the clinical trial, right? As soon have a vaccine as soon as out as possible. Those kind of huge simulations and huge AI drug discovery can happen only when AI is speeding it up. It is predicting the way a molecule or a virus can infect. It is looking at huge amount of data of people across age, across gender, across race, across countries, and for all that, there's huge amount of technology involved. And of course, the sustainability and making sustainable materials. So it takes 10 to 100 million dollars to invent a new material, right? It takes a lot of resources, and it takes 10 years. It's not that it happens immediately, but technology can make that cycle shorter. It can make it faster, because you're using AI to and AI models can do the predictions whether this thing will react with this or not, or whether what might be the reaction outcomes. So that itself changes it. So if you see these 5 and 5, AI is just invigorating it. It is just as an escalator, as it's accelerating it. But the problems are, it needs folks in biology. It needs people in and if you put a AI ethics wrapper around it, it's so much related to behavioral change. It's so much related to the folks that who are doing psychology. It's so much related to economics, because how organizations are investing into it, how it's going to impact society. That's all a very different domain altogether. So AI, big problems in the industry can be solved using AI, but it needs a lot of interdisciplinary skills. Now I'm going forward to my point on how the transformation through interdisciplinary skills can happen. If you see the use cases of AI are across all the areas. Now, like what I mentioned, that AI data is the most important thing for AI, for it to function or give any intelligent outcome. Domain knowledge is the other. right? Domain. I mean, today, I'm a doctor, and I know how what symptoms of cancer I can detect, and I can understand that. Can AI help me if I feed data into it? So that is my aid. So AI can be an aid to a doctor. AI can be an aid to a lawyer. There are so many legal documents and everything, and I can handle many more, cases, and I can cater to many more people. I mean, we all know that how many cases lie pending in our courts for long, right? If you apply AI, then you're accelerating decision making, and you are giving it to many more people. So the whole concept of accelerating, being able to predict the outcomes, automate it, and have trusted responses, right? You cannot just can just have any response. You have to trust the response based on, you have to clean the data, you have to work on the data, you have to be ensured that there is no bias in the data, because if bias in is bias out, you might just put your own existing biases in, into the data. So AI, if you see, it has so many areas: agriculture, supply chain, retail, finance, and I'm sure I would have missed out a couple of them. Agriculture, cyber physical systems. I mean, it's beyond STEM. Health workers, psychologists, anthropologists, lawyers, chartered accountants, fitness experts, they need to understand the implication of AI. So it is highly multidisciplinary. Of course, what you do in AI will depend a lot, right? You could be a data scientist, where, of course, you need to understand math and programming and Python. But there could be data engineers who need not understand math. They could be statisticians who can come from statistics background. They could be designers. In fact, in IBM, we have a big discipline called design for AI. How do you design a system? How do you make our software and make the design which is giving explainability as to of the output of AI? So people coming from design are working so much in AI in our organization. You could be, I mean, we have Watson Health as a business unit, where doctors and clinicians and folks from this background are actually working with programmers and data scientists to build a model for cancer detection. So in everything, it all has to come together, which means that the domain people also needs to know about AI. They don't need to program AI, but they need to know the implications and the use cases, and how to build the right prediction and intelligent outcomes. I want to give an example. Of how we are applying AI, which is like multidisciplinary in nature, right? So, like the project debater. Project debater is it's a totally different area. So if you know IBM's history, we do a lot of technology innovations. We had a Deep Blue innovation, and the chess, and it was about chess, and how a computer can beat a computerized system can beat a chess champion. And then we launched Jeopardy. Jeopardy was a game about multiple questions coming in, and people solving it. That was kind of the birth of Watson. And the project debater, and that's really interesting. It is about debating, as simple as that. So it's a system which debates, and in fact, it debated with the expert human debater, the Harish Natarajan, who's considered to be the number one debater in the world. And we created a system which could debate on complex topics. The topics were like, is it time to redistribute the wealth, right? So how does an AI system can have a well-structured speech, have clarity, have rebuttal, and it debated with a human system. So it's a lot of technology, but it's we've kind of put it and made it as an evidence-based arguments, and limiting the influence of emotion, bias, ambiguity. So it's a system that we put together, which kind of helps people to understand. So you will find similar kind of examples in the industry, and it will be good for you to. I mean, you can go and Google on Project Debater. In fact, just 1 week back, there was a big debate on Bloomberg TV. Everything is available. You guys can Google it and find out, because these are interesting things to see how technology is being challenged. So I know I'm cognizant of the time, so I'll just talk a little bit about how AI in business is changing. It is predicting and shaping a lot of future outcomes because it's able to automate decisions. And I will talk to you about 4 different patterns which make this happen. The first in businesses, and if you see any business, you can take retail, you can take supply chain, you can take pharmaceuticals, or you can take manufacturing. It would be about discover new process. Maybe, so first, before you apply AI technology, you have to first see which business process are you going to change? What are you going to, affect? Is it a new process, like, for example, you're going in a lift. If the lift is moving too much and too heavily, you think, oh, there is something wrong in the lift, right? And but if there was a mechanical engineer inside the lift, he or she can tell that this is not a fault, or this is a fault, or it's going to break, right? So, but the mechanical engineer can always not be in the lift. So there could be a new process which kind of is listening just to the sound of the amount of sound which is being made. And from that, it can detect that is it something which can cause a failure in maybe 10 days. So it's a new process. This process was not existing, right? The whole Uber routing map. I mean, I took a business example, but you all guys know that the whole routing mechanism. It's a new process. It's a new process which has come in. So that's a new process in which AI can be infused. You can have old processes that you enter into buildings and you see that every time the electricity bill is, we don't even care what the electricity bill of the building is as users of the building. But there is so much of data available, right? On that data, if you can measure occupancy of people and predict the energy consumption and then reduce the utility bills, that's you have reinvigorated old processes. You can start a new channel like virtual assistant, chatbots. It could be a new channel, or you could just unlock a lot of data which is present in the organization. There could be volumes of data available within the organization, and you can just use that to apply AI. So these are some patterns in which you apply AI in business. You identify the business process, you find where the data is, and then you start. I mean, AI comes later. First is the business process identification, having huge amount of data, and then we get into that. Very quickly, there is a lot of work on fairness, bias mitigation, explaining AI, robustness from attacks. So there's a lot of security work around it. Seeing if the desired behaviors and are observed. So there is a lot of work around this, and I would encourage you to Google about AI fairness and AI bias and AI explainability. In fact, we have a toolkit called AI Explainability 360 Toolkit, which has toolkits for. It can apply to examples like say insurance, right? And insurance, what if you are giving loans only to a certain set of people because you fed data of 30 to 40-year-old people of a certain sect and or a religion and not the other. So that algorithm will not give a loan to if a 55-year-old woman applies for a loan, because it has been fed with only 30 to 40 age group and a certain religion or a certain gender. So those you have to mitigate, you have to remove bias in your data. And there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of so we have put a kit out, and it's on open source. You can check it out. So I'll just mention one last example, which is on Weather Company. The weather.com is actually an IBM company, and it uses huge amount of forecast models, some 150 plus forecast models, and you can imagine the amount of data it is fed. And it has that's used by airplanes, agriculture, and billions of weather forecast locations are there. And AI is being used, and we didn't even realize that it's forecast models which are helping us. So just one last part, and I'll pause here. That AI skills are extremely important, and we are working with the CBSC because a lot of skills are there at 11th and 12th grade. I know you guys are at undergrad level and maybe even at postgrad, but now we are imparting skills even at 11th and 12th, and we have made AI into the CBSE curriculum because that's where you start laying the foundation of AI. And this is AI for all. It is not related. Even commerce, humanities, biology students, or of course STEM students can do it. And we do a lot of projects with them, hands-on projects. So I'll pause here. I know I have less time, but I would want to spend some time in question and answers. And AI for business is a huge area. And I've done a introduction to this and told you that how businesses are adopting. Some businesses are failing, some businesses are doing initial proof of concepts, and there are huge amount of businesses who are successful. So the promise of AI is definitely big, and the fear of AI is being dealt by the AI fairness, the bias, the kits that I talked about, and the confusion of AI. I hope I'm able to tell you that it's extremely interdisciplinary. And if you're wanting to start with AI foundation courses. There are a lot of courses on Coursera. You should do them, and there are even IBM courses on Coursera, and you can find them out. And the businesses are accepting AI. It is there for with all of us here. So I'll pause here. I'll stop sharing, and please feel free. Geeta, over to you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shalini. What an insightful talk on how AI could be, should not only be treated as a tech domain, but also as a multidisciplinary cognitive domain. So I think that just gives, what Plaksha is all about. So anyway, the Q&A box seems to be flooded with questions. But before I take them on, I just thought I should, everybody would be interested to know more about your journey so far. Be it your love for math and science, which I read somewhere, and your motivation, your key turning points, and your successes, and your initiatives to set a culture of gender sensitization. I think that's been hugely talked about. So if you could just briefly share that before we take about some questions there.
Okay, you've asked me a lot of things, Geeta.
Okay. Free to choose and answer whatever you feel like. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I started my career. I've done BTech in computer science, and then I have done my master's in information management from SPJN. And I've been in the industry for like almost 23 years plus. I started working in understanding. I mean, I love technology. So I started working in understanding industries, how technology can be applied in banking, finance, public sector. So I've worked with a lot of clients. I do a lot of client-facing work where I like building solutions for the clients. And I've spent a lot of years in Internet of Things, and I set up the Internet of Things lab in Bangalore. Internet of Things is also, it was absolutely new field because it was a combination of hardware, software, services, not just a single software. So I spent a lot of years in Internet of Things. I started working in AI only say 3 years back, and because of course the promise of AI kind of pulled me, and now I do a lot of work on supply chain, in supply chain systems, in manufacturing systems, in building management systems, as to how AI can transform things for our clients. I also work a lot on AI skills in transforming my organization into an AI organization, because people come from their traditional skills, but you have to transform them. You have to make them learn and learn new skills. And I also do a lot of work in the good tech projects, and that's where I work with AI for CBSE. And I'm very passionate about how AI can be applied in learning and in education, because AI can do wonders for education, because it's a time for personalized learning. It's a time for customized learning for students. And AI can help a lot in understanding a student's profile and personal, I might be an economics student, I might be second year economics, right? So, but apart from economics, I need to know, say, a flavor agrarian economics. I need to know psychology. I need to know statistics, right? So there could be a blended learning, and AI can help in creating those paths. So I work in these areas, and if there's something which is left, you can ask me, and I can.
Yeah. Thanks, Shalini. So I think I'm picking one question from the Q&A box. It says, if AI is interdisciplinary, does it mean that student needs to have studied certain subjects before they can begin contributing to the field? Could a non-math major possibly help build an AI system?
Yeah. So see, now there are a couple of things happening in the industry. Of course, you will see a lot of AI, masters in AI and masters in or even undergrads in AI, which is happening. But even the folks who have not done, if you're not done science in 11th and 12th, right? So you're maybe doing a commerce thing. Of course, you can still do that, because like what I said, a legal system, it doesn't need science and maths, right? A legal system has to be built with AI. I have HR people working with me in my organization who are working on AI systems and helping us build the prediction algorithms. So for an HR people, they are people who have done HR are not necessarily coming from science, from STEM backgrounds, designers, right? Like what I mentioned. So of course you can, and I think what you should do is you should do some foundation courses on AI so that you understand how the applications of AI, you are able to understand what AI achieves. That if you're able to understand, you can work with programmers to together to build a system.
Right. Shalini,
but if you want to work on that AI technology, then of course you need to have science and maths. That you want to work on the algorithms for image processing. You want to work on visual analytics, and which is videos, and you're working on that. So if you're doing, you have to work on language processing. Then you need those things, right? So that's how it is.
Well, my next question is for something which is related to students who are wanting to pursue a career in AI. Actually, it also goes back to, I've been watching my 6-year-old nephew who is working with this he's growing up with this interactive technology like Siri, OK Google, or Alexa. And Alexa seems to be the buddy, especially during this, social distancing times. When you see that, and you've started seeing the little ones have stopped distinguishing between what computer and human interaction is all about. So what I see is that this interactivity only growing further. So what advice would you give students preparing for careers in AI development, which focuses on human-centered design?
Yeah, so very good question. So one is the human interaction is extremely important. In fact, we actually sometimes don't call it artificial intelligence. We call it augmented intelligence, because it's actually augmenting what humans are doing. Right. Yeah. So you augment, you do not, you never remove humans from the whole process, because the ultimate decision is the human's decision. And that's when AI stays more powerful, because, then it is aiding the humans to do that. And how you interact with the systems, that is also a lot of area. And there's also a big design area in itself. Right. Like, how do you design so that, the user is not interrupted in their thought process? Right. Or, how the behavioral change is coming into people to, introduce AI. So it's a field of, a lot of field of work. And that's why we call it augmented intelligence. And we also talk about the behavioral change which people have to do to adopt, so it's AI which has to adopt to people. AI, which is done by, say, a space planner person who's saying, I need an AI algorithm to say how to repurpose my office after the pandemic with social distance of 6 feet in distance, right? So there's an algorithm which will work and do the work for you. But how does that algorithm interact with you? How much power it gives to you, or are you just going to blindly follow that? So that is a big area in itself.
Right. Thank you, Shalini. In the interest of time, I know we could have gone on and on with you, just inspiring us. So, with the hope that AI will turn out to be a friend as we move further into the 21st century, one thing seems certain: the world will have to get used to a silicon-based intelligence. So, thank you, Shalini, once again, and look forward to you coming again and inspiring children at Plaksha and all the students always. So, thank
Okay.
you again.
Good luck, all of you at Plaksha, and have a great sessions ahead. Thank you, Geeta. Thanks so much for hosting this. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.